my privilege to introduce our esteemed guest of honor, Professor Dr. Sandeepa Bhat. With over 15 years of teaching and research experience at eminent institutions, Professor Dr. Sandeepa Bhat is a professor of law and the director of the Center for Aviation and Space Laws at National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata. Sir is a member of several noteworthy institutions, including the American Society of International Law, USA, the International Academy of Space Law, Russia, and the International Institute of Space Law, France. Sir has also worked on 5 major research projects sponsored by different bodies, including the World Bank, ISRO, the West Bengal Judicial Academy, the Ministry of Justice, and the Ministry of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change. Sir has also had the distinction of being the member of Indian Space Research Organization's Expert Advisory Group for drafting the National Space Act for India. Dr. Sandeepa Bhat Sir has published over 50 articles in renowned national and international journals of repute and has also published several books on space law and medical law. Sir has presented at numerous international conferences at places including Singapore, Paris, Austin, and Southampton, to name a few. Sir is a member of several editorial and review boards of law journals, such as the VBCL Law Review and Academy Law Review, to name just a few. And he has also mobilized grants for conducting research in the fields of medical law and nuclear law. In addition, Dr. Sandeepa Bhat Sir has also designed academic courses in air and space law, medical law, and nuclear law at the PG diploma levels. It is indeed an incredible honor to have an international law expert housing such experience with us today. I would now request you, sir, to please share a few words with us.
So much. Very good afternoon to all of you. And I should first thank the CMR University and Professor Subramanya for his initiative as well as the invitation for being part of this inaugural program. I can see that a number of participants have drastically reduced down now. I know that actually you might not have expected this inaugural to be so long. But anyhow, whatever it may be, I will start with a promise that I will not go beyond 15 minutes. I'll just confine myself. Especially maybe in this next 15 minutes, I will not focus in terms of the substance of international law, which of course the previous speakers have already discussed in detail. Am I audible? There is some interface, I think.
You are audible.
Okay, thank you. Right. Yes, so I will not speak about the substance of international law. Rather, I will tell about the limitations and maybe the scope or the opportunities available, plus also what kind of activities can be done by the center in the course of time. All these things I will just roughly would like to put forward in my own views. A couple of years back, the NUS Singapore, the Center for International Law in National University Singapore, organized an international conference on the teaching and research in international. Being part of that conference, I spoke on the difficulties in not only teaching international law, but also researching as well as studying international law in India. As per my understanding, teaching, researching, or studying international law has got a big challenge in India, especially due to the limited exposure. As Professor Hegde has already pointed out in his inaugural speech, if you go through the curriculum of any university in India, we can find 1 or 2 subjects on the international. Maybe like say something on public international law, and another course maybe on the international institutions, the United Nations and some related aspects. 2 courses on international. So compared to the domestic laws, many areas, whatever we are covering in this syllabus, I think probably it would not constitute even 1% in many universities. If you have 50 courses in 5 years, 5-year LLB integrated program, which might have 50 courses, if you have one or two international law subjects, it would at the maximum constitute 1% of your course. So that is what is the situation in many of the Indian universities. I being the part of many committees in different universities regarding the curriculum review, I have seen some subjects of international law covering almost everything under the sun. Like say, for example, a public international law course covering law of the sea, United Nations, international institutions or organizations, then covering human rights within the ambit of that. And even I have seen some courses covering air and space law within the ambit of that. I should say that the God save the person who is teaching that course. I can't imagine in one semester or maybe even in 1 year covering even the basic principles of international law. Aspects like the sources of international law or interrelationship between the international law and municipal law, or a discussion on the state responsibility, international liability, or maybe also even other aspects like say succession, state recognition, jurisdiction, sovereignty, so on and so forth. There are so many basic fundamental principles of international law, which itself would be taking more than a semester for study. Unfortunately, the university is having one or two subjects on international law. Try to club together as many subjects as possible within the ambit of that, without doing any kind of a justice for the study by the students. So that's what I basically find that it's a real concern in the Indian academics regarding the international law. Added to this, if you look into the LLM in many of the universities in India, very few of them offer the international law specialization. Very few universities have international law LLM. And that's why we are also not producing the good academics in the field of international law. We have a very, very limited number of academics in different aspects of international law. Most of the teachers in different universities who teach international law are the makeshift ones. They must have studied constitutional law, they must have studied criminal law as a specialization, but then there should be someone who should teach international law, and these people will be forced to take the international subject. That's how actually most universities have got the makeshift teachers who would not be able to do any kind of a justice while teaching. While this has been a problem from the faculty point of view, from the students' point of view also, there are major couple of limitations. One, that international law cannot be seen on day-to-day basis, just like your many municipal. For example, while studying actually the law subject, you might see something about the tort in the courts of law, consumer protection happening in front of you, criminal law provisions being invoked in different cases. I think somebody else's mic is on. That's why actually there's echo. Right. All right. Okay. Anyhow, so therefore, the problem is that the students cannot see it happening on day-to-day basis. That's why it becomes very difficult for them also to understand the intricacies of international. Added to that, in the national law universities like ours, we find that there is a very, very heavy orientation towards the corporate law subject, corporate law subjects. Especially whenever we ask why you are interested in the corporate law subject, this high level of orientation towards corporate law comes from the marketability. Most of them believe that actually it is highly marketable. That's the reason why they would like to specialize in corporate law subjects. I should say that this is a wrong presumption. This is certainly a wrong presumption. If you look in reality, there is a huge practice in international law. International law is not just actually an academic subject. There is a huge practice which is going on in international law, known to only very few top law firms. If you look into actually the practice of top law firms, even in India, like say, for example, Fox Mandel, Trilegal, Dua Associates, right? So all of them are any other such kind of culture, the top law firms, you can find that 90% of their revenue is generated out of the cross-border dispute, which obviously involve international law. So therefore, don't be under the impression that it is the corporate law subjects which has got a lot of marketability and the international subjects don't have the marketability. I should tell about, say, for example, few of the examples. International trade law. That's a huge practice which is going on in international trade law. A couple of my own students, like say Deepak Raju or maybe Rukmini Das, they're all actually the big names in the international dispute settlement mechanism. Representing a case before the WTO is a big matter, and also actually it involves huge stake. Also, disputes in aviation or space law, they're all, say, for example, space disputes, they're all multi-billion disputes. Multi-billion dollars investments would be there, and each dispute would be that of multi-billion dollar the dispute. You believe it or not, there are law firms which practice exclusively in the field of aviation or in the field of space law abroad. We might not have that much of an exposure in India, especially because we have limited amount of private space activities. But in the western part of the world, where a lot of private space activities are happening, you can see that many of the law firms exclusively practice in the field of space law, and they have got huge revenue generated out of that. You have other areas like, say, nuclear liability, investment arbitration. A lot of practice is going on in investment arbitration. Contracts, international contracts, and then reading into that. Immigration law, international dispute settlement mechanism, cross-border financing. So these are different areas wherein a lot of opportunities are available, and most of the firms are making huge revenue out of their practice in these areas of international law. I should say that the center like this would definitely give scope to the students as well as the researchers to have a better exposure. And whatever limitations which we are having in the Indian academics, maybe in the LLB level or in the LLM level, can be filled in by this kind of centers. And CMR is definitely having an added advantage in the form of Professor T.R. Subramanya, who himself is one of the best scholars of international law. So which is definitely an advantage for all of you to have a center on the international. In fact, actually, a couple of months back, during our discussion, actually, I suggested about this particular center and carrying it forward, actually, in an informal discussion. But it's the reality today. Just actually, we had discussion maybe 2.5 months back that such a kind of a center can be actually created, and Professor Subramanya is on that, and this is the reality today. And one can imagine how swift he is at this age, right? So, so I mean, I should really admire actually the kind of the efforts which he puts in with respect to any activity, and under his leadership, definitely the center is going to excel a lot. So now it is left to the students, researchers, as well as the faculty coordinators, whoever is actually part of this particular center, to strive for the excellence and carry forward the vision of Professor Subramanya regarding the international law. A few of the things which you can think of immediately, maybe to go for the regular conferences and the guest lectures. So on the cutting edge areas of international law, you can think in terms of actually having the regular conferences every year, plus also some of the top scholars guest lectures. Then also have a dedicated journal, one of the international journals you can think of actually publishing from your center, so that it can give scope for the researchers to publish their actually the pieces. Plus also some of the scholars from abroad can contribute meaningfully to the center's activities. Then maybe internship opportunities. Center can also think in terms of providing internship opportunities to the students, so that whatever gap they have in their regular curriculum can be filled in by the internship opportunities available in the center. Institutional collaboration is also another important thing. I was speaking to Professor Subramanya about exploring the collaboration abroad, So hopefully, if you can get actually some institutional collaborations abroad, you would be able to actually better excel yourself, and also some exchange programs can be started in the course of time. Maybe both student exchange program as well as the faculty exchange the program can be thought of in the course of time under the aegis of the center. So these are all few, suggestions. Of course, whatever has come to my mind, I will just actually put forward to you. But let me tell you that whether you like it or not, I will definitely keep a watch on the progress of your center, right? So if a person who proposed this particular center, definitely I would be interested to know about how much of progress you're going to do in the course of the time. But at the same point of time, I'm available for any kind of assistance, whatever is possible from my side. You can contact me at any point of time for the whatever help which I can provide. So with all these things, let me just actually wind up by saying the best wishes for a very, very successful journey ahead. And let me have a strong belief that you will become one of the leading centers, not just in India, but also across the globe. All the very best to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. And please accept my sincere appreciation for sharing your understanding, and we'll definitely work on your valuable suggestions. It was really helpful to know more and more about the center. Well, I would ask only a split of second, and let's halt for a moment before moving ahead with the events, and appreciate the fact that it was some breathtaking and electrifying transmission of knowledge. I mean, what else can we expect from such a scholarly and intellectual event? I therefore ensure, as a token of gratitude, that all of us will endeavor with go-getter spirit to achieve plethora and profound understanding of international law, its relevance, implementation, and application in the real world, which would allow us to develop consciousness into the global legal system and assist us to make this world a harmonious place. Carefully advancing ahead and shooting up my velocity, I would like to give an introduction of our respected Dean, Professor Dr. T.R. Subramanya, and his incredibly inspiring professional journey. Professor Dr. T.R. Subramanya is currently serving as a Dean of CMR University School of Legal Studies, Bangalore, after serving as the Coordinator and Research Fellow at the Center for Regulatory Studies, Governance and Public Policy in the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata, from 2016 to 2018. Prior to this, he was the Vice Chancellor of the Karnataka State Law University from 2013 to 2015. He has also been the Professor of International Law at the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences and Vice Chancellor in charge of Bangalore University, Dean and Chairman of the Faculty of Law, Bangalore University from 2008 to 2010. In the international level, Professor Subramanya has served as the legal advisor to the Kingdom of Bahrain for over 7 years. In his capacity, he acquired considerable knowledge of the laws and legal system of the Gulf Cooperation Council states and in the practical application of international law at the municipal level. Professor Subramanya has obtained Master of Philosophy and PhD degree in the international law from the School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi in 1993. Dr. Subramanya initially published a book entitled The Rights and Status of Individual in the International Law in 1984 and edited another on human rights in international law in 1986. And his most recent book, released in 2021, on hazardous substances in India and the world, legislations, framework, and management. This is published by Routledge and was released in UK, West Europe, Australia, and US in May 2021. And the same will be released in India in August of this year. We are avidly and passionately looking forward to this informative book, sir. And with that, may I now request our respected Dean, sir, Dr. T.R. Subramanya, to deliver the presidential address. Over to you, sir.
respected Professor Venkatachala Hegde, Dr. Balakrishna Reddy, Professor Chandra Puranik, and Dr. Sandeepa Bhat. Most of you have spoken about the present status of international law, what has happened to it, and what is likely to happen, and how much is going to remain in the years ahead. I still remember, if you read any textbook, in the 1970s and the 1980s, there were several centers which devoted to the cause of international law itself. So most of the professors, when they used to write their performa or the CV, they would say, I hail and take a degree from this international law centers. Now today, all those centers which exclusively devoted to the cause of international law are not there. And in its place, remember, lots of area developments have come in, which has led to the development of international law further. Now, it may be an institute of trade law, or it may be an institute of environmental law, or it may be an institute of child law, or it may be an institute of humanitarian law. I can mention hundreds of such centers which have come. Where is the center which is concentrating on the concepts of international law, as Professor Hegde has pointed out? Hegde was right when he said, so you can do anything. You are entitled to maneuver. But then, unless your concepts are strong, you will be nowhere. So concept you should be put in such a sound footing. From there, you will be in a position to speak on anything, develop on anything, write on anything, produce a magnum opus for a book like anything. He was just mentioning about Richard Hack. He was mentioning Professor Chimney. See, since the grounding on the concepts was so strong, Richard Hack, when he argued the case even before the International Court of Justice, maybe in Southwest Africa cases, he was considered as the best man to speak on human rights. Simultaneously, when he argued some other case, he was considered the best. Or simultaneously, if you take the Australian scholar, he was also the same. Now, always they have touched and dwelt several issues related to international law. But then, remember, when they spoke with authority. They could speak with authority. Remember, because their grounding was very sound. That is very much required for any scholar, even in future. So the second thing which I just intend to harp upon happened to be, we always say, in the chessboard of international politics, what is being done will have to be accepted. Now, this is true with all conventions. Now, for example, in the international community, when they go before the negotiating table, there will not be consensus. And when there is no consensus, they said 35 ratifications for a treaty will do, the treaty will come into force. Those states which are not interested, those interests whose sovereignty was so much in their mind and overworking in their mind, will succumb and accept the contents of the treaty at a later stage. Let them adhere to the provisions of the treaty. But then, now others can sign and the treaty may come into force. Now, always, what we call as the common consent is the basis of law, has been playing a major role in international law. But then, without their knowledge, remember, the concept is getting what we call this, it is getting diluted. It is getting diluted for the simple reason, naturally the states are interested in development. States are interested in the welfare. States are interested in going further and tapping up the resources for the welfare of themselves as well as for the world. In such situations, you can't just speak about your sovereignty all the time, as we used to speak. I still remember when we were thinking about reading about the Vienna Congress of 1815, the differences between Austria, the difference between the state of Great Britain, the differences between Prussia was such. Remember, all the 4 states, including the state of Spain, had to enter the hall in different doors because of the ego. Now, where is such ego? There is no such ego as such, because even small states are speaking about it. These are the changes which we have brought in. Over a period of time, many changes will come. Having said this much, we have made a good beginning and we have laid down a path. And on this path, we try to dwell upon and walk upon with the blessings of the institution. I just don't want to say anything. We will try to carry forward, and for the support, men like you always be at our behest, and will be taking your assistance and support. And with this, we'll be able to realize our goal. All the best to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to call upon Professor Ramya R. to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, one and all present here. On behalf of CMR University School of Legal Studies and the entire fraternity of this institute, I feel so honored and proud to deliver the vote of thanks for this auspicious inaugural session for the Center of International Legal Studies. I would like to extend my thanks to all the dignitaries whom are present today. And I would like to express my sincere thanks to all our guests of honors today who have joined us in their busy schedule and shared their expertise and inspirational thoughts and made their valuable suggestions. We would obviously follow those suggestions. So thank you so much. And I would like to acknowledge our gratitude to our management and the authorities for their support for inaugurating this center. And I would like to thank our respected and beloved Dean Sir for his persistent support and encouragement for all our endeavors to start this center. Thank you so much, sir. Next, I would like to extend my gratitude to our respected Vice Principal, Professor B.J. Praneshwaran, who never tired of guiding and supporting our efforts. Thank you, sir. And my heartfelt thanks to all my colleagues for their support, and especially Professor Srinidhi and Professor Shivani, who helped us to have our website exclusively for the center enabled, and it is online now. And Professor Adra Vasudevan for the technical support as well. And last but not the least, I would like to extend my thanks to all my student coordinators for making this event so successful, and also to all my participants for having your presence, for making this event a grand success. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. And at last, we have come to an official end of the event. And I take this opportunity to thank every one of you who made this meeting possible with their virtue of prudence and active participation, making the inauguration of the Center for International Legal Studies a grand success. It's been our pleasure to host this event, and I thereupon wish all of you a very pleasant day ahead. Thank you.